Hello there, how are you? I hope you are doing well. Today's video was originally going to be a sit-down video, and I was going to talk to you guys about the fact my mother is blind and I grew up with a blind mother. However, I did ask for, I was going to do a Q&A portion at the end, and I asked for some questions on Instagram. However, a lot of your questions were actually really good, so I just decided to say, fuck it, it's a Q&A video now. So I've got all your questions here on Instagram, and if you don't follow me on Instagram, what are you doing with your life? No, not really. I'm not that conceited, but... So let's get straight into this. The first question I received, what was the hardest part about growing up with your mom? I'm guessing that in context, that is the fact that she's blind. I think there was a period when she was declared legally blind when I was about 7. She had to learn Braille, and there were lots of doctor's visits. She had to constantly fly from Cairns to Brisbane. I stayed a lot with my uncles and my grandfather, and that's how my uncles are so close to me, is because my mother was off, trying to work out if she could fix her eyesight, doing a lot of experimental treatments. Gotta remember, this is the 90s. This was before, there are treatments now to help prevent the progression of this particular disease that she has, but they didn't have it in the 90s. So when I was about 7, I had to start teaching her Braille. So I was in grade 2, grade 3, and, doing my own schooling, all of that, doing lots of sports, and I had to also take time off school to help her go to her appointments and help her learn Braille and help her learn how to use her cane and all of that stuff. Although she doesn't like to use her cane. I think that was the hardest part, and also the fact that it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that, especially in my teen years, she'd say, "Oh, you're beautiful," and I would be like, being the rude teenager I was, I would say, "How would you know? You can't even see me." Yeah, a bit sassy, but I was dealing with a lot of shit too. I didn't have the easiest childhood, so there was, lots of crap. Anyway, the next one. Did your friends ask weird or intrusive questions about it? Not really, actually. I find that every now and then, someone will ask something that may seem a little bit, but I know deep down that people are just trying to learn a bit more about it, trying to understand it a little bit more, because it's very different. The worlds are very different. Next question. Did you ever feel that you had to take care of her instead of her caring for you? Like I said before, yes. I had to teach her Braille. I had to help her use her accessibility devices. So her cane, there was a big magnifying TV thing when she was still working that she used to try to use, but it really hurt her head, because trying to use her eyesight for like doing textbooks like she used to do, it really hurt her. I did take care of her a lot, and I still do. I don't mind it. Like, I help her do her groceries, and I do still help her with my brothers and sisters and, house things, all of that stuff, because she still does need the help. And my stepdad works full time, so he's not exactly there all the time, and, she needs the help, and I'm the oldest, well, tied with the oldest. My stepbrother is the exact same age as me. He's 3 months older than me, but we were in the same classes. That's how our parents met. How hard would it be to describe something to someone who can't see? Well, considering that she had sight, for her, younger years right up until... Okay, so I was 7 when she was declared legally blind, which makes her 23. 23, I think. Yeah, so she was declared legally blind around there. Yes, she was a teen mom, okay? 24, sorry. So, considering the fact that she had the foundation of being able to see for the first, 20-something years of her life, she has a basis, a foundation that I can describe things off. And that's how we do it. I describe movies to her, I describe things that I wear, things that I do. I don't know, it's just part of life. I'm used to it. I don't know, it may seem tedious to other people, having to talk through a whole entire movie, just describing what's going on, the little things in the scenes that don't have any sound implication. She relies very heavily on sound and touch. How does it feel seeing your mother face challenges like that? I don't know, it started when I was really young, so I don't really have any other world. I know from looking at my friends' families and other people who grew up around me and their families, it's a very different life. It is very different. There are so many other things that go into everything, even the planning of a household, like where our furniture was put, how she maneuvered around the house. For instance, this is something that's really interesting, is that when we moved house, because we moved house a few times in my childhood, we had to put all the furniture in first, and we had to configure it exactly how it was going to be, and it can't change. So she can walk through for a few hours and count different steps to different areas, because big living rooms that have coffee tables and all of that stuff, she can't rely on sound for where things are placed, where walls are placed. She can hear where a wall is by her footsteps. There's another reason why she has tiled and wood floors. Not a question, just wanted to say that your mom is amazing, an amazing woman for raising you and your siblings. You hear that, Mom? I know you watch my videos, so you hear that? How did she become blind, or was she born that way? She has a genetic illness called retinus pigmentosa. I think it's retina pigmentosa or retinus pigmentosa, something like that. It's a genetic illness that lives on the X chromosome, so women are more likely to get this particular illness, disease, whatever. It affects the way that the retina is able to read information coming in coming into the eye onto the optic nerve. So her optic nerve is dead, or dying, something like that. I don't know much about it because she does like to keep it secretive these days. I'll get into that soon because I know there's a question pertaining to this. Did you worry about your mom when you were growing up, like her safety? So this is that question I was talking about. When I think I was like 6 or 7, we were mugged. She was taking out the rent money at the bank, and somebody had seen her walk out of the bank. My little sister was in the pram. Oh man, I must have been younger than that then. So I do remember, because my mom talks about it, but I don't remember this fully. It's like fractured memories because I was so young. It must have been just after my parents divorced. So I must have been like 5, maybe 6. But Sabrina was still in a pram, my little sister. And somebody held me at knife point to get my mom to give over the money. So that was one incident. Another incident was people found out that she was blind. And this is when we lived in that small town in Australia. And up far north Queensland in the middle of fucking nowhere. So the population was like, I think just under 1,000 in the town itself. So someone had found out that she was blind, and my stepbrother, my sister and I were all in the backyard playing around, as kids do, and my mum was robbed. Someone had just walked into the house, taken what they wanted, and left. And that was at a point where she was still learning how to be blind in the way that she hadn't quite switched on the new sense, hadn't quite tunneled her abilities for sound and all of that. So she was still figuring all of that out. But yeah, we got robbed. Those experiences are also we've had people at checkouts try and rip my mom off. But luckily, as I found out that my mom was going blind, she taught me all the currencies. I was a very intelligent child. Not that intelligent now, but I was a very intelligent child to the point where I was getting put up grades. And I knew the currency system. I knew quick maths.
Quick maths.
I would point out when checkout people would rip my mom off because they would work out that her eyes aren't pointing at them because she'd lift up her sunglasses when she'd pay for things, to be courteous. And they would work out that she's not looking directly at them, or sometimes one of her eyes just goes AWOL because the muscles are dying. But I remember this one particular incident. It was at Raintree Shopping Centre in Cairns. Yeah. I don't know if it's called Raintree still, but it's in Menunda, I think the suburb was. It was on the border of Menunda. My mom had handed over a 50 and she should have got back 30 change, like 30 something change. But they handed her 2 10s instead of a 20 note and a 10 note. And she hadn't learnt the different sizes of the notes yet. So I looked at them and said, no, that's wrong. And they were trying to say, no, little girl, you're wrong. And I kept pushing and I said, Mom, they gave you the wrong notes. And so we called a manager in and we got the right change in the end. But the fact that someone was willing to scam a fucking blind woman, you're a piece of shit. And this happens so often. But the reality is that people seem to think that they can get away with it, and seem to think that, they're so clever. They're so clever for trying to rip off a blind woman. And it's like, especially when they've got someone with them, you really think you're that clever? My mom doesn't go anywhere alone. She can't. Don't try and rip her off. That was a big tangent. Did you ever feel like you missed out on some childhood experiences because of it? I do know there were things like I couldn't go to a lot of school events, or I had to rely on friends to go to school events because she couldn't take me and my stepdad would be working or something like that, or before my stepdad came along. I played violin during school. She couldn't come to a lot of my recitals. Actually, my Uncle Buzz came to 2 of them. He's one of my godfathers, just to be that replacement parent. I did have a lot of support around me to kind of make up for the fact that there were a lot of things that I couldn't do or I wouldn't experience. Has technology helped with facilitating a relationship with your mother? Very much. We FaceTime and all of that stuff, especially FaceTime. She FaceTimes a lot when she needs to, work out what's going on with something. So she'll FaceTime and aim it at whatever it is, and she'll say, "What is this?" or something like that. Usually it's a snake or something like that. Straya. You mentioned that your mom went gradually blind. How did your family prepare for the worst? Like I said, we didn't prepare for the worst. We did her bucket list in the way that get it all out, do whatever you want. There were a lot of heartbreaking times for her in the way that she saw specialists all over the country. She spoke to specialists in France to try and fix her vision, and all these people would promise her the world, and then she'd go to them. They would promise her, you're gonna see again. You're not gonna go fully blind because of this, but it would never work. So, but that was the 90s. There was a lot of experimental medicine then. Even though she couldn't see, did she have any issues with your alternative style? Oh boy, the first time I got pierced, I didn't tell her because see, I legally emancipated myself when I was 16. I moved out of home because I was a rebellious teenager. I was feeling a lot of resentment from my childhood, abandonment, and all kinds of stuff. Abandonment from my father. We've hatched all that out now, so everything's all good. Everything's all good. But I wasn't dealing with a lot of things very well, so I just decided that's it. I've got to do all of this on my own. My mom had a bunch of new kids, basically, so I was like, yeah, I can do this. I moved down the road to another house. So I was still around and I'd still help, but it's just that I needed my own space to learn how to be independent and not have this codependent relationship of constantly helping everyone around me. And it really did help. Not heaps, but it did help learn that I can be independent, because I kind of felt for a while that my whole life would be dedicated to my mom. I do remember the day I came home, like, just for a visit, and I had snakebite piercings because she could hear that I was talking funny. And she was just like, what the fuck is in your lip? And I was like, oh, come on, have a feel. So she feels my face and she's like, what the hell have you done? What the hell have you done? And my stepdad was like, oh, it actually looks kind of cool. And she was all like, don't encourage her. And it was funny. But I think the most shocking one was when I came home with my wrist piercing and my neck piercings. And she was just... She felt them, she felt like she was gonna puke, and she said, bandage that up, don't show your little sister. Because at the time, my other sister, well, one of my other sisters, Isis, was like 5 years old, I think. And so I had a bandage on my wrist and plasters on my neck, so she couldn't see. But I took the bandage off because, it's fucking hot. Australia gets fucking hot. So I undid the bandage and, it was a fresh piercing, so there was a little bit of blood oozing, and, it's a silly place to get pierced in the first place. But my little sister saw it and she started crying, and my mom, she did not like that. She did not like that. But she came to terms with it. I think the most shocking thing for her was, my first piercing, my wrist piercings, and probably the second time I started stretching my ears, because she was just like, you're so dumb. No, not really. She didn't call me dumb. She just said, you're silly for doing that again. Did you ever get emotional because she couldn't see you? There were times, especially when she'd be like, oh, you're beautiful. And I would yell back at her, you can't see me. You haven't seen me since I was like 6 or 7 years old. Don't bullshit. But I understand now that I'm a parent that no matter what, your child is beautiful to you. So I understand it now. But at the time, being a moody little bitch, that's what I'd throw back at her. God, I was a horrible child. Did you feel that her condition gave you certain responsibilities you shouldn't have as a child? Yes, I kind of answered this before, but yes, it did, because I was very responsible for my mom's safety, especially when we'd have our days walking around Cairns or Kuranda or various towns around far north Queensland. If it was just her, myself, and my little siblings, then I did feel responsible for everything that happened to them, from tripping over to what if we got mugged again, because I'm the one who sees. I should be the one who can sense danger, but I did feel a lot of, I still do, in the way that I need to keep my mom safe. So yeah, and that comes from Nemi, so I love you, Nemi. I love you, Nemi. I adore her. Was she able to make you braids and other hairstyles? I learned from a very young age to do my own hair, because she did teach me from like the age of like 4 to 6 how to braid and all of that stuff, so I could do my own hair. She was preparing me, so she taught me different hairstyles and she actually bought me books secondhand from Vinnie's. I love St. Vincent de Paul Society. Secondhand hair books. Yes, they were 80s hairstyles, but hey, who cares? I felt pretty. She taught me the basics, and I would use these books to teach myself the rest, because one, the fact that she's blind, she can't tell where the knots, and because I had extremely curly hair when I was a child. She couldn't tell where all the knots were, so it would hurt like a bitch when she would brush my hair, so I had to do it myself. There was no other way, otherwise I would sit there crying. And I would often brush my sister's hair as well, because she would sit there crying. I'm sorry, Mom, but you really suck at brushing people's hair. By the way, if you think I'm being mean to her or something like that, you should see my family. We use insult comedy against everyone. It's you know, it's our thing. It's our thing. How do you keep your mom positive when my mom has vision problems in her left eye? Okay, so one thing I learned, okay, this is probably not the best way, is, see, it took a really long time for my mom to work out that I was being bullied at school, that I was dealing with physical abuse from family members, certain family members, and it's because I didn't tell her, because I knew that she was already going through a lot of shit. She didn't need any more. And I'm trying to word this very carefully, because the people that used to physically abuse me as a child, I have a very good relationship with them now. So they've changed. It was alcohol fueled violence. And they don't fuck with that shit anymore. So I kept it. I didn't talk about it to my mom because I knew it would hurt her. I kept everything happy. You know what? I have my moments of, you know, just being a kid and throwing a tantrum or something like that. But the deeper issues, I would always just say, no, she doesn't need this. She really doesn't need this. Yeah. I'm gonna move on to the next question because that's very hard to talk about. Actually, to finish off that, it's just, I wouldn't say do what I did. I would say try and be as positive as you can. Laugh, make jokes, but you know, don't worry about the little issues. You know, there are some things that you should. Yeah. I'm gonna move on. I can't do this. What was it like playing games and having fun with your mum? For a long time we didn't. I know that she felt very disconnected from us. We didn't have many toys as young children because we didn't have that much money, but we would often just play in the gardens and in the forest and in the bush and stuff. You know, the drains on the side of highways. God, we were bad. We were bad kids. I'm sorry. The drains in the side of highways, we would actually go swimming in the puddles. That sounds disgusting, but after cyclones and stuff, they would all fill up, and we would go, woohoo, go swimming. We realize now that was incredibly dangerous of us, but see, my mom didn't know where we were. We were bad. We took advantage of her. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry, Mom. I do remember actually when I was I think I was no, it was when we moved to Kuranda. So I was turning 10 that year. My mom had found out about the regulation soccer ball in the Paralympics for the blind soccer team. So it has a bell inside of it. So we did this mock-up, because we had acreage property, we had lots and lots of property in the middle of nowhere to stop people from, you know, robbing my mom. So we did this like mini soccer field, and I think she felt so... She didn't feel blind at that point in time because while playing that, because, you know, she knew where the soccer ball was, she knew where the goals were because she could hear it. She, like, the difference in the sound when she came near the goals, and she loved that shit, and, you know, we would have a lot of fun with that too. Did you have to do a lot of housework as a kid then? Yeah. Especially because my stepdad, oh man, my stepdad had all these Japanese collectibles. He's actually a sword master. He did lots and lots of Aikido, I think it's called. Samurai stuff. He's a black belt in that. So he was the ultimate weeaboo from the 70s. So if you think weeaboo culture, no, you ain't got nothing on my stepdad. He is the ultimate weeaboo. And he's practically like, he's an old Afro samurai because he's a person of color, and then when his hair actually grows long, he's got an afro and he does swordsmanship. So he's the embodiment of old Afro samurai, basically. So he was so terrified of my mom cleaning his collectibles because he had 100-year-old vases from Japan. He had 500-year-old swords and all of this stuff. He still has a lot of this stuff, but she was not allowed anywhere near that stuff. Nope. She's not allowed to touch buttons in the car. She's not allowed to touch buttons around the house. The buttons thing comes from the fact she's so handsy with everything. So when she gets in anybody's car, she just starts pressing buttons and goes, what's this? What's this doing? So she's banned from buttons. Like when I got my new car, the first time I drove her anywhere, she just got in and started playing with everything, changed all my settings. I didn't know what the hell she did, but I had to it made me read my car manual to try and reset everything that she did. But you've got to tie her hands down if she gets in a vehicle. Like, she presses everything. But yeah, we did a lot of housework. It's kind of normal that we had to do something every day, or multiple especially on the weekends we had to do heaps, especially yard work, because we had big properties. Can blind people see in their dreams, or do they hear what's going on? Actually, this is a very interesting question in the way that, one, she did have sight previously before going blind, so yes, she sees visual things in her dreams. And I've heard that people who are born blind, their brain creates images with the pituitary gland, I think. Whether it be colors, swirls, patterns, all of that stuff. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you get away with stuff since she couldn't see you doing it? Okay. She knows I used to do this because she told me. I thought I was really slick, but I would sneak like a little chocolate bar. I was not allowed chocolate, by the way. I'm lactose intolerant, so she would know when I would do this, and I think it was like punishment in the way that I would put a chocolate bar into the trolley, and because they were like 40 cents back then, she wouldn't really know the difference with the overall grocery shop, and I would eat it. I gotta hide it, and then I'd get home, and then as I went to bed, I would eat it, but then I'd be violently ill through the night. And then years later, she told me she knew I was doing this all along, but it was just my own damn fault. So, she got me good. She got me good. I don't know, I don't think I technically got away with it then. What things does she do, or did she do, that most people wouldn't have expected her to do? She writes. Actually, fun fact, how she got money for us when I was a very young child and she was going blind. She worked part-time at my stepdad's shop, and they were like kind of casually seeing each other. She was a bookkeeper, and she was writing porn short stories and all of that stuff, and sell them to people. It was mainly actually those short stories that are in men's magazines, like men's softcore porn magazines of like my experience lately with a woman and all that. It's all fake. It's not actual, readers writing in about their like their sex experiences. It's people like my mother who get paid to write because it makes guys feel like, oh, I can do anything now. Yeah, secret of the industry. She told me about that. Did kids frequently pick on you? When they found out my mom was blind, yeah. But it was actually for a range of other things. I got called pig nose because my nose is upturned. I would get called pig nose all through school. What else? Yeah, pig nose, man. I would get called, because my real name starts with N, they would call me Nigel because I was a Nigel no friends, so they would call me Nigel, and I looked manly and did a lot of sports. They said I looked manly, but now everybody wants a strong jaw and high cheekbones. But back in like the 90s and early 2000s, everybody teased me for it. The strong jaw, they would call me a man. And when my voice, because my voice has always been really low, they would always joke about my balls dropping and all that stuff. So that was one thing. I got teased for being hairy. I got teased for being German. I got teased for not having a dad in my life. I got teased for everything. Fucking everything. So, but the physical abuse that I copped from other kids didn't happen until high school. I think the worst one was, and it had nothing to do with my parents, because at this time I was living out by myself, and it was because I was the goth kid. A group of, actually, it was football boys, and my husband was on the football team, so it was his friends. They threw a brick at the back of my head as I was walking home one day, because one of them, I'm not going to say his name, he was the rich kid on the football team, so he had a nice car and he lived up the street from me. So I was walking home, he drove up, and him and his friends threw bricks out of his car, and one hit me on the back of the neck. And obviously Mr. Phillips wasn't friends with them after that incident, because that was when we had started, seeing each other and all that stuff. But yeah, I think that was the height of the physical abuse, because they could have killed someone if it had struck me a little bit higher. But hey, I'm alive. Bit of brain damage maybe, but what was the relationship between your parents like? If you mean my biological father and my mother, not good. It's still not good. Let's just leave it there. Between my stepdad and my mom, they've had issues, but they're still together, so yeah. What sort of childish pranks did you pull that only worked because she was blind? We would hide a lot, but we had to learn how to hide well. No loud breathing. We had to channel ourselves to make very quiet, slow breathing, no movement, because she could hear. I've got a lot of breaks, I've had a lot of broken bones and broken joints and stuff, so I crack a lot, so I would have to get into a position that my wrist just fucking cracked 3 times. A position that I knew my bones weren't going to crack, and I'd hide underneath a bench or something like that, or just behind a cupboard, and I'd reach out and grab her ankle. I still do it today because it's fucking hilarious. She even does this to me because she is super stealthy sometimes when I'm at her house, because she knows her house. She'll just, walk up to the door and go, "What are you doing?" Fucking, you bitch. But yeah, I'll hide behind things. And like I said, I still do this. I've been doing this since I was a kid. Hide behind things and just go, "Ugh," or just reach out and just subtly grab her ankle or something like that. Touch her ankle or grab her arm or something, and she'll freak out. And yeah, I did once cop a punch because she thought I was a stranger. So I learned how to do it right. Oh my god, that sounds so horrible, but she does it to me too. And I think it helps in the fact that people regularly do this together. People regularly sneak up and scare family members and friends and all that stuff. I think the main thing is don't treat someone who's disabled as their disability. They want to be treated like a regular person, so include them in that. You know, you may have to make, you know, subtle changes, but don't treat them like they're this fragile little thing that can't possibly act like a human. That makes them feel worse. Were you ever embarrassed? I did feel embarrassment for a while in primary school because I knew that it was different and people seemed to tease and bully and make fun of different. And like I said, when I guided her through my school at the parent-teacher interviews, which was the only parent-teacher interviews she ever went to, I did get a little bit of shit from other kids laughing at me, all of that stuff, because I think they see a woman like holding onto a child who's like 11 years old and they go, oh, what a baby little child, oh, look at this, and they don't care to know what's actually going on, you know, or the fact that yes, she's blind, so she does trip a little bit, and I have to, when she goes upstairs, I have to say up, 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 up until there's no more stairs, or down, 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 down till there's no more stairs. Step up, step over. I give her little voice commands of what she has to do, and it has to be perfectly timed, so I have to concentrate on that. But you know, just kids are cruel, I can tell you that. They don't mean to, it's just that they're not taught any better. What was it like going out in public with her? Did she require much help? I think particularly in the 90s, because Australia hadn't enacted many disability support laws, so there weren't many like those grids at intersections that are there. It's actually for canes, so the canes can slide, and the different patternings mean different things. Like the long straight grid sections means continue straight, and then you come to a like the small little lumps that either means you've got more ways to go, or you've got to stop because there's a road or intersection. So there's little subtle things that they have started to do for accessibility for blind and deaf people. It's still rolling out over the country. Like they're changing the banknotes in Australia to be more blind friendly, with tactile cues, because like I said earlier, there is a massive problem with people trying to defraud blind people out of their money because of the fact that they can't see what's going on. And you know, sometimes they know what's going on, but they're just too afraid to say anything because your sight is such an important sense for a lot of people, especially with her. She grew up being able to see, but it's a very reliant sense, and it is a dominant. So it's that innate kind of thought that someone else who can see is dominant over someone who can't see because they have that ability, and they use it to their advantage. These scum-sucking pieces of shit use it to their advantage to one-up blind people, but I really hope karma comes for them and, you know, shoves a foot in their ass. So that is all for this video. I hope I've answered your questions and given you a bit more of an insight into what it's like, you know, what the world is really like for the child of a blind person. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I would love to be here for every single video. Like this video if you enjoyed this and want more kind of videos like this, and hope you all have an absolutely wonderful, fantabulous day. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.